Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Franklin Lorenzo and I pride myself in making short, digestible videos for your enjoyment. In today's video, I'm going to talk about comparing the Canon 14mm f2.8 and the Sigma 14 to 24mm f2.8. To compare these two, I decided to shoot at the Vessel, which is an iconic art installation in the center of Manhattan, which is composed of many stairs and you can navigate it however you want. Now this place had a lot of regulations and rules, and one of them was that we photographers, or anybody else for that matter, could not bring in tripods or excessive photography gear. So I know what a lot of you are going to say already, that it would have been more fair if I used a tripod. However, that was not an option. So I did my best to stay in place and change lenses, as you can see in the behind the scenes, without moving from the spot. I was also being very careful where I positioned my torso against the railing, so that way I knew I was always in the correct spot at all times. And to make the video short, basically, I found out that the Canon definitely shows a tad more than the Sigma 14 to 24. However, if I were to choose between the two, I would go with the 14 to 24 Sigma lens because of its versatility. In some places that I went to during my many travels, I couldn't go forward further because I would have meant me falling either over a cliff or bumping into something that I was not supposed to. But the point is that the 14 to 24 allowed me to zoom in and get a different type of shot, whereas with the Canon 14mm, I couldn't do that. On the other hand, the Canon is sharper to my eye, but not by much. If you're one of those photographers who is always posting your work on social media or online where they're not really going to see the full detail of the image, to me that's not a big deal, because by the time you export them as JPEG and post on whatever website you are, due to the compression, you're losing a lot of data, so the sharpness in that case is not a deal breaker for me. On the other hand, the Sigma does tend to suffer a little more from color aberration, which for those of you who don't know is usually a line of like green and purple that you find on the edges where it's usually high contrast. But again, that's easily fixed in post-production, and one thing that you can also do is just turn the photos into black and white and remove the problem altogether. Now you guys know me, I always like to break the rules and not just follow or use the lenses the way they're meant to be used, but rather use them the way I think would benefit most given the circumstances or situation. Obviously, I used these two lenses the most when I was traveling abroad. I used them when I was in Australia. I also used them when I was in Utah in the United States. I used them in Vietnam, in Cambodia, and the list goes on, and the photos were just magnificent. They provide the photographer, the creator, the opportunity to create dramatic looking images. For example, one that I shot in Iceland, when the glacier falls apart and goes into the ocean, eventually the current brings it right back to shore. So I used a flash behind one of these pieces of ice with a blue and red gel, and I placed the camera on the sand pointing slightly up so I could get a little bit of the sky and get these dramatic photos of the blue and the red, making it to me one of my favorite photos from that trip. I've also used the lens to photograph indoors, specifically restaurants where they want to show the most amount of space, so that way they can sell this image or idea to their clientele. And of course, I had to do it. I also photographed a dancer in Costa Rica. And the one thing you gotta keep in mind with using these type of lenses is that they will introduce a lot of distortion, especially if you're closer to the subject. If you happen to go farther back, it won't be as noticeable. However, you can always use that to your advantage. In this case, the dancer wanted to look taller and leaner, and by getting a little close to her and shooting from a low angle, I was able to make her legs look a lot longer than they actually are. So to wrap up, I think both lenses are amazing. So the decision is up to you. Based on the images you've seen, you can come at a conclusion and make a determination for yourselves. Now make sure to tune in for next week's video, where I'm going to show you a behind the scenes photo shoot that I shot with a horse, and I'm going to give you some tips regarding that. As always, if you found this video helpful, please consider liking and subscribing and hitting the bell notification. Until next time, take care.